Bum, ba, bum, ba. Akasan's Honest Reactions. I am Akasan.
And I am Jabby Kawai.
What's up, man? Thank you for joining me here. I mean, it's my channel, but your place. But, you know, wrapping up the last of my Los Angeles expedition, coming back home. And actually, we have grown up. Are you actually, were raised here?
Yeah, I was born in Los Angeles. I grew up in Eagle Rock, North Hollywood, and then Sherman Oaks. Basically, so pretty much. Yeah, this is where I've been in Sherman Oaks for the last several years.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I grew up I was born in North Hollywood, raised in North Hollywood, then lived in Van Nuys for a while, Hermitage, and all around the San Fernando Valley. Then
where'd you go to high school?
I went to took 3 buses, and I went to University High School on the other side.
Okay, I went to North Hollywood High.
Ah, okay. My brother went to Van Nuys High.
Okay.
But I just started going to where all the white people were.
That's smart.
Look at me now! Yeah. Anyways, we're not gonna jibber jab too much. All that talking's gonna get you hurt. We got a long one here, 14 minutes. The Philosophy of the Joker, Wisecrack edition. Highly recommended from you guys. So, you ready for this one?
Sure.
All right, we've been reacting for a lot today, so we might not be all there, but with the Joker, it's probably for the best. That was my Batman.
Hey Wisecrack, this is Jared, Clown Prince of Wisecrack, and today we're talking about the guy people have in mind when they say that Batman has all the best villains. Everyone's favorite nihilist, the Joker.
I have nothing to live for.
Making his first appearance in 1940's Batman #1, the world's busiest evil clown has been featured in hundreds of comics and cartoons, dozens of video games, and 4 live-action films.
And now you're watching this.
And of course, feel free to talk over this
in the
sometimes.
1928 film adaptation of
This
The
I
Man
know,
Who Laughs,
yeah.
the Joker's motives have ranged from the sadistic
What hurts more, A or B?
to the mercenary
I will be rich forever.
to the downright inexplicable.
Confusing, isn't it?
But
My
despite
favorite.
the fact that hundreds of creative minds have worked on the
Paul
Joker,
Dini.
his outlook on the world has been surprisingly consistent.
Yeah.
And it represents an extreme version of a reaction we've all felt towards the world, at one point or another. So put a smile on that face and enjoy this Wisecrack edition on the philosophy of the Joker.
Should be interesting.
Part 1, One Bad Day. There are a lot of explanations for just how the Joker got to be the Joker.
Do you know how I got these scars?
The first account of the Joker's origin was revealed in Detective Comics #168 back in 1951. And over the past 6 decades, most versions have followed more or less the same plotline.
Pretty much,
A 2-bit villain known as the Red Hood loses a fight to Batman, falls into a vat of skin bleaching and hair brightening chemicals, and emerges as something entirely new. Over time, DC built on this origin story. Alan Moore's 1986 magnum opus, The Killing Joke, made the Joker's origin a lot more tragic, making him a reluctant villain who lost his humanity after one bad day, where he failed as a stand-up comic,
Nobody laughs.
was informed of the death
I still
of his
need to
pregnant
see
wife,
this, actually.
The trailer?
No, the
got framed by the
movie.
mob, and only then fell
Animated
into a vat
movie.
The
of
Killing Joke?
disfiguring
Yeah, it came
chemicals.
out this week. Or last week.
Come on.
The entire premise of The Killing Joke was that the Joker hoped to turn Commissioner Gordon into
Insane.
another version of himself by giving Gordon a similarly bad day, to prove that even the best of us are never more than one bad day away from becoming, well, whatever the Joker is. More on that later. While The Killing Joke is technically not a canonical story, and the Joker gives a strong indication that he has no idea whether this version of his history is accurate anyway,
Sometimes I remember it one way.
Right,
Sometimes another.
the comics, animated series, and games have mostly stuck by Alan Moore's depressing version of the Joker's origins ever since.
Really? I must be falling into a rut.
Batman and the Joker have something in common. Both live their lives as responses to traumatic, worldview-shattering events. Events that represent an existential crisis that most people have to deal with sooner or later. How do you respond when life destroys your sense of meaning?
good point,
Batman
actually.
reacts to his parents' death by dressing up in a Batman leotard.
That's one of my favorite
and
Batman
battering
movies.
Oh, it's the
criminals,
best.
which
The Mask of the
is
Phantasm?
That is the
standard.
Batman movie.
But
Not
the
this
Joker's
shit.
one bad day led him, with equal passion, to embrace meaninglessness and
That's
violence.
true.
After all, if moral nihilism is correct, then nothing is right or wrong.
Right.
According to French existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, recognizing the meaninglessness of existence forces us to realize that we are responsible for creating our own meaning. Choosing how to deal with this loss of meaning animates the entire Batman universe. Right. Batman decides to uphold some form of conventional morality as a vigilante. Awesome. The Joker chooses to abandon it entirely. And the villain Two-Face splits the difference, literally flipping a coin to decide whether he'll uphold conventional morality or rebel against it. Although the Batman persona is usually presented as a response to personal trauma, not nihilism, more recent versions of the character have begun to sound more and more existential.
I bet your parents taught you.
Yeah, thanks, Zack Snyder.
For a reason. My parents taught me a different lesson. Dying in the gutter for no reason at all. They taught me the world only makes sense
if you make it.
Force it to.
The Joker is aware of this distinction between himself and the Dark Knight, and in recent iterations of the character, he even feels a kinship with him.
You complete
me.
This places Batman and the Joker in an existential struggle.
This is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
That's one of the reasons
Batman is trying
TDK
to
was so
convince the
good.
Joker to accept conventional morality, while the Joker is trying to seduce Batman into abandoning it. 1989's Batman connected the characters even more directly, making the 2-bit mobster Jack Napier the original killer of
That messed me up for a long time. I thought that was Jack. I thought that was the Joker in the Batman origin story because of that.
They gave birth to each other.
I was a kid. I killed your parents. I mean,
Right, Burden kind of, but you know, first Batman movie, I'll let it pass.
Batman and the Joker are already fully formed by the time they meet. Heath Ledger's Joker was different from any version that preceded him, different from any other villain in cinema, really.
True.
As an elemental force of chaos with supernatural charisma, planning, and dumb luck, he didn't have or need a consistent origin story. He was more of a demon summoned by Batman's enemies to fight him.
No other alias. Nothing in his pockets but knives and lint.
A demon they soon learned that they couldn't control.
You crossed the line, Versa. You squeezed them, you hammered them to the point of desperation.
Such a good movie.
And in their desperation, they turned to a man they didn't fully understand.
In other words, in the world of the Dark Knight, the Joker's presence in Gotham City is entirely Batman's fault.
Oh, Mike, tonight. What are you, superstitious? You got more chance of winning the Powerball than running into him.
By introducing oppressive justice and order, he has thrown the moral universe of Gotham out of balance and created opportunity for a new kind of chaos and evil to emerge.
My jokes were bad.
This idea of society without balance is central to the philosophy of French sociologist Jean Baudrillard. In The Transparency of Evil, he argues that the kind of moral progress Batman seeks would be impossible. Because even as he seeks to uphold justice by making criminals his bitch, he creates more extreme versions of order for criminals to challenge and subvert.
We hired the clown. He was right.
And that's happened a lot in the animated versions as well. They added
thus giving birth to a radically antithetical version of Batman's brand of justice, the Joker. In trying to completely sanitize Gotham of evil, Batman essentially created a super germ, a kind of autoimmunity disease in the form of the Joker. In Baudrillard's words, all liberation affects good and evil equally. The liberation of morals and minds entails crimes and catastrophes. The liberation of law and pleasure leads inevitably to the liberation of crime. According to Baudrillard, evil isn't the opposite of good. If something unpleasant happens to you, that doesn't mean it's evil. Evil is characterized by a radical indifference to good. This is essentially the Joker. Instead of merely making bad
This is getting heady.
For villains, the Joker has a more sinister goal: to completely destroy the concept of what good even means.
Each of you has a remote. Blow up the other bulb.
I heard Nolan lifted this from a different movie, though.
Everyone considers themselves to be good. So the Joker tries to seduce Batman, Gordon, and others into abandoning their moral foundations and do something they'd never see
Good
themselves
artist borrow,
do,
great artist
thereby
steal.
corrupting their understanding of goodness. His mischievous passion for breaking down people's confidence in the division between good and evil is exactly what makes the Joker so intriguing. Most other villains combat good with the opposite. The Joker destroys good. In the end, Batman wins the fight, but the Joker wins the argument. The once idealistic Harvey Dent is now completely indifferent to the distinction between good and evil.
The only morality in a cruel world is chance. Unbiased, unprejudiced, fair.
Whether he's trying to leave his deadly imprint on the world around him, or just break down one character's moral compass,
I just wanted to bring down your grim facade and for once let you see the world as I see it, giggling in a corner and bleeding.
The Joker's objective seems to be to show us that our pretenses to love and morality are phony, and that we're a lot more self-serving than we let on.
to prove a point.
But I suppose the question still remains, why does he bother? It's a cop-out to say the Joker is mentally ill.
True,
The common classification of the Joker as insane seems to just be a way of demonstrating how little we understand about how his mind works, and why it takes a similarly dark and eccentric character to figure him out. What makes the Joker violent, in other words, isn't a psychiatric problem. It's an existential one. He is pathologically sane, and he's seen how fragile conventional morality is.
See, they're morals. They're code.
It's a bad joke.
It's a bad joke.
He believes that no one is more than one sufficiently bad day away from total depravity. But the Joker doesn't just abandon traditional moral codes, he subverts them with a sinister kind of humor. Part 2. Why so serious? The Joker is a joker. Just like it says on the tin. He resembles a clown, he has a huge permanent grin, and he's been known to use elaborate slapstick-based murder.
I remember that fucked me up as a kid. I'm like, where was he hiding that gun?
History, it's been just a gimmick. But starting with the publication of The Killing Joke in 1988 and continuing through the release of The Dark Knight in 2008, there's been a darker undertone to it. He enjoys doing wretched, horrifying stuff. It's funny to him. The Joker jokes because, from his point of view, everything is trivial.
Silly goose, it's all a joke. Everything anyone has ever valued or struggled for is monstrous.
And while it's easy to write him off as a sadist, his regular attempts to tempt people into doing things that upset their own sense of right and wrong and reveal their hypocrisy may speak to the very heart of what humor
This is The Dark Knight Rises, Returns.
In
the animated
of his
version.
masterpiece,
Frank
The World
Miller's
is
work.
Will and Representation,
That's why
Jerry
Batman was so
Foster
fucked
and
up in
Prodigy,
BVS,
Firestarter
because
hair
Frank
model
Miller,
author Schopenhauer wrote that the
Snyder
cause of
completely
laughter in every
misinterpreted
case
what
is
Miller
simply
was
the sudden
doing.
perception of an incongruity between a concept and the real object. Laughter itself is just the expression of this incongruity. All laughter is then occasioned by a paradox. This, briefly stated, is the true explanation of the ludicrous. The idea of finding humor in nihilism isn't really new, and in smaller doses, it can be a great survival mechanism. In Laughing at Nothing, Humor as a Response to Nihilism, the contemporary American philosopher John Marmish argues that laughing at the void can be a really healthy thing to do.
My heart wasn't in it, so I quit. To be a comedian.
I wish they would stop showing so much from The Killing Joke, though. I haven't seen this yet.
The nihilist, in claiming that our fate is unfair, unwanted, and unfavorable, need not collapse into despair. Rather, with humor, this individual might understand life as part of a cosmic drama that is amusing in its ultimate absurdity. Because the Joker is an active and even joyfully fanatical nihilist who sees it as his duty to confront imposed moral order with the reality of chaos, his entire life revolves around identifying incongruities between what we say we are, moral, righteous, good citizens, and what we actually are, selfish, savage creatures.
They got me early on. My mother's hospital bills.
Don't! And he's having a great time doing it. According to the Joker, conventional morality and the social structures built around those ideas are flimsy and weak. He believes that nobody is ever more than one bad day away from abandoning it. His entire career as a villain centers on giving people that one bad day
oh my god.
to end up just like
he turned Robin into a Joker.
Like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
The Joker's signature weapon, Joker Venom, is a deadly gas that kills its victims by forcing them to laugh themselves to death, while their face contorts into a rictus grin just like his own.
You'll be alright.
And Joker Venom is as old as
he don't look alright. He don't look alright at all.
Number 1, and most versions of the Joker use some version of it.
Right.
Improved Joker product! Smiley. I get a grin. Look him.
I still love this
Proving
movie.
Everyone's capable of becoming what he is, both morally and physically. It's the Joker's greatest pleasure and obsession.
I give you the average man.
And it has made the character terrifying and relevant for most of the past century. It's his killing joke. Conclusion.
Alright.
It's hard to resist the temptation to glamorize.
I feel like
the
there's going to
Joker
be a
little,
test after
partly
this.
Because he's been around so long that we've developed a certain amount of affection for the guy.
Life's been good to me.
And when you look at the scale of human suffering, injustice, hypocrisy, and greed, it's easy to relate to the Joker's commitment to proving we're not as noble as we pretend to be. But he isn't heroic either, and he isn't supposed to be. There have been some stories where the Joker did seemingly heroic things that were consistent with his character. In the 1996 Marvel-DC crossover Batman and Captain America, he turned against Red Skull and refused to join the Third Reich. And in the 2006 conclusion of DC's Infinite Crisis, he brutally executed the near-omnipotent Lex Luthor for being being too much of a control freak. But in both cases, writers cleverly avoided having him turn over a new leaf, giving him plausible, selfish motives that justified his uncharacteristic helpfulness.
No, please, don't insult me.
But the Joker wouldn't make a very effective villain if we didn't all have a little bit of him in us.
Yeah.
We're suspicious of other people's moral codes, we're liable to fixate on their hypocrisy at the expense of our own, and we all have moments where we just kind of want to watch the world burn. He's still smiling at us, and we're still smiling back. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We had a great time working on it. The Joker is one of my absolute favorite characters, and this was a video I was dying to make. Now, just a few things. Click here to visit our channel page where you can find another Batman video to watch and subscribe. We have some big episodes around the corner, and subscribing is the way.
I'm gonna come back to his channel to see the Metal Gear video.
Also,
Yeah, I think so. That would be the best way for sure. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much, Wisecrack, for actually allowing me to react to this video, as long as I put the link in the description below. And of course, please, if you haven't, kind of late to say it now, but if you haven't seen this, please watch the original first, and you can come back for all the commentary highlights starting now. What do we think about this?
I think this Wisecrack dude is like super thorough. Like that was one of the best YouTube videos I've seen. That you know, you there's a lot of crap on YouTube that's just like random stuff, and this guy like thoroughly broke down every single aspect of the Joker from every angle possible, and he started to bring in other material from philosophy, not just one philosopher, one aspect of philosophy, but like different branches of philosophy, and
nihilism.
I'm like, dude, this is like textbook hardcore crazy good.
Right. I mean, this is my first experience to Wisecrack in the channel and such, but when just talking to him, you know, I could see that the guy, you know, I'm looking at the other videos that he has, like, yeah, of course, he must have studied philosophy a lot. He might be a philosophy teacher or so. But like you said, all the references he made from different philosophers really showed that he was really trying to give the Joker, trying to make sense of what the Joker does. And what I kind of appreciated the most is the fact that it gave me a better appreciation for what the writers, the DC writers, must always go through. Especially with the editors. I think actually sometimes the editor-in-chief, like Dan Dido, has to do to always make sure every writer is grounding the Joker correctly in this kind of particular these particular rules. Okay, you can have Joker do this, but you got to make sure it's within this realm. You know, you can show him being crazy, but he's not really crazy. He's got a plan here, and I kind of like the way the way they kind of summed it up is the fact that Joker is just trying to break down the walls that others have created. So
the fact that he's been pretty consistent over decades, speaks volumes about how well written just the origins of this character is. He said he took a turn with the Killing Joke. Like, because he's always been kind of that guy who's anarchistic, essentially.
But and this was another video I saw, is like, you know, in the beginning he was just more like a criminal. Like what the Dark Knight did was kind of bring back a little more of the Joker's roots when he first appeared. But what happened was comics just came under pressure a lot, and then they went into the more like Adam West style Batman and more goofy, and Joker started using toys and everything. And just like the Dark Knight Returns, just like the Dark Knight Returns brought back the badass Batman, our very dark Batman, the Killing Joke kind of ushered in like the way Joker was supposed to be more, I wouldn't say sadist, but again, that's what the philosophy is basing itself on, is just trying to make people crack and showing that all rules equal shit, basically. And it was the Killing Joke also ushered in the sort of unofficial origin of the Joker with the Red Hood situation, fall into a vat of chemicals and yada yada, so on and so forth. That isn't technically canon, but most writers have kind of respected that as the unofficial origin, so to speak. So that's kind of what it was. I mean, Alan Moore, it's an interesting story to Killing Joke, and Alan Moore is a great writer, and that was one of his really debut sort of things. I mean, you're familiar with Alan Moore with Watchmen and such.
And he also did V for Vendetta, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So this was this was one of those dudes that really had a lot to say and really brought in something with the Joker. So it was very powerful and very controversial because that was also the one that made Batgirl, took Batgirl out of action and put her in a wheelchair.
Right. There was a whole controversy over the cover and everything, right?
That was a little different. The one from like a few months ago, right? Yeah, that. But the Killing Joke was the whole thing that took Batgirl out of action and made her put her in a wheelchair and made her Oracle. So that was also like a change in the game for the Batman family altogether. So
but it really like just the depth of examination in this video. It still impresses me. I'm just floored because it takes you into the crevices of Joker's mind in a way that you like, oh, yeah, like, because there's something you kind of inherently understand about the Joker on like a subconscious level. Like, you just get it. But to have it explained to you in a very methodical kind of college education style, I'm like, okay. So it helps to give us some clarity of why you feel the way you do when you're watching his Joker in any of the executions, like The Dark Knight in particular. Was the,
see, that's what I thought was kind of interesting because I noticed that he did a lot of Dark Knight references here, and
because it's just the best. It's just the best execution.
True, but also Nolan and family brought in more of the anarchist Joker, a lot more like less funny, more I'm gonna break down these structures and these rules and such, and I'm very curious to see if this philosophy would have been tweaked just a little differently if the Dark Knight trilogy wasn't around, or if Ledger's Joker wasn't around, because that anarchistic type of mentality was very dominant in the Dark Knight, but people really loved it, so I'm fine with it though.
Yeah, it makes sense of the character a lot more than him just being a criminal.
True.
Like, it makes him volumes more interesting.
And I'm kind of glad I watched this after seeing Suicide Squad, because if I had watched this beforehand and then seeing Suicide Squad now, I would have been like, well, we don't see much of that in Suicide Squad at all with Leto's Joker. But to be fair, Leto's Joker didn't really have much of a screen time to really show what he's all about.
I heard a theory that Leto's Joker is actually Robin.
Yeah, I think that one got debunked a little bit, but it still could be true in the future. So, so that's what you were.
Leto's Joker is more of a criminal than he's an anarchist.
Though what you're seeing there in you saw that was actually from Batman Begins. Batman Beyond, the animated movie, Batman Beyond: The Return of the Joker. That was that scene where Tim Drake Robin was captured and went missing for like months, and Joker and Harley were planning a family and they couldn't, and it was a weird thing, but basically in short, Joker was like, oh yeah, well, I always remembered you had a couple kids running around with you, Batman, so we just borrowed one of yours, and basically turned Tim Drake into Joker. Or a mini Joker like that.
Wow.
It was a rough thing to watch, and the uncut version was. There's more to it later, but that was one of the main things of like, in the Batman Beyond world, that was. God, I'm blanking out on his name. Terry McGinnis, who is the current Batman in Batman Beyond, just assumed that Bruce Wayne finally killed the Joker because nobody ever talks about Joker in the future. Nobody talks about him, and he just assumed that that's what pushed Batman over the edge and finally did him in. But there's a lot more twists to that movie, so I highly recommend you check out The Return of the Joker.
Okay.
Second best Batman movie in my opinion, in terms of like, we talked about Mask of the Phantasm. Return of the Joker, it's up there, actually.
Oh, really?
It's really up there.
Okay.
All right, guys. Red Dread Nation, stand up, speak up. Tell me what you guys thought of this extremely long video. Do you believe the philosophy of the Joker is incorrect or correct? Do you not care? I want to know everything, okay? And please, by all means, after all said and done, please check out Jabby's channel here. Lots of stuff there. Tell them a little bit what you're doing.
Oh, like Indian action films?
We're so burnt out.
Yeah.
It's like we just finished the test.
Well, we talked about it in the beginning. They know.
Okay.
Like, they know. You guys, there's a lot of fun stuff. But at the very least, if you're into Star Wars, there's a cool lightsaber fight scene on there that everybody really enjoys. It's more the thing about the fight scene. I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
The lightsaber fight scene. What I went for there is a choreography that you haven't seen yet. Because if you look at the Star Wars movies, even the current one, Episode 7, you basically have seen that fight over and over again. It's just like clashing over and over again, right?
Yeah.
What I was looking for was ways to use the lightsaber in ways that you haven't seen it used. Maybe introducing some Jackie Chan type stuff in there.
Yeah, it was all there.
And so almost every aspect of the fight scene is something you haven't actually seen yet until that short film.
Essentially, what you were waiting for in The Force Awakens when they cast the dudes from the raid, you're like, oh my god, the dudes from the raid are going to be in The Force Awakens. What the fuck? They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah.
So please check out the
Way of the Saber.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I just saw something else, The Way of the Force in Disneyland 2 days ago. But okay, The Way of the Saber.
Yeah.
And I think we're about out.
Yeah.
We're done. Okay.
Cool.
Take care. My last reaction video probably in Los Angeles, and I'm out. Peace, guys.
Peace out.
After an arduous journey, my movie finally made it to Japan, and without naming names, I'm completely out of budget for my sequel, but I need to find some budding movie talent. So I'm reaching out to Akasan, the red-dreaded beast himself, to see if we can find me some movie stars. Let's do this, Japan!